As many people know, lately there has been a lot of cheaters, unfortunately, in Destiny 2, especially in Trials of Osiris, and this led me to try and create a loadout that would allow me to contest someone that is cheating as best as possible. And honestly, of course, this loadout has just been a ton of fun to use in general, and I think it's an incredibly powerful loadout. But also it originated from my desire to try and combat cheaters just a little bit better and give myself some sort of a fighting chance. So the main bulk of this loadout is going to utilize the Night Stalker Pathfinder tree or the middle tree with spectral blades, and you're going to be using that with Khepri Sting and Devil's Ruin as well as Revoker. So quickly, let's also go over our stats. We're going to have 6 or technically 7 mobility, because I do use traction for that extra mobility point, 4 resilience, 9 recovery, 6 discipline, 3 intellect, and 8 strength. On the build, I've prioritized mobility, recovery, and strength. So mobility is going to give us our dodge more frequently, and I think that's really important. We've managed to get it up to 7, which is pretty good. Remember, these stat splits are with the gear that I have available as a framework for maybe what you should be aiming towards. I think recovery is also incredibly important and always should be one of the most prioritized stats. We do hit 9 recovery here with 8 strength. However, when I go over the mods, you'll be able to see that you can actually swap a strength mod for a recovery mod to get that 10 recovery, which does give you a pretty massive return. It's one of the only stats that don't give you diminishing returns, so going for 10 recovery might be more favorable than 8 strength. As for our other stats, I usually try and go for 6 resilience, but I've given that up in favor of more strength. The higher strength stat, the more often we're going to have our smoke grenades, which means the more uptime for Khepri Sting, so we can really make the most out of our exotic choice. I do somewhat unfortunately also have 6 discipline and 3 intellect, which is only somewhat unfortunate because I would rather take some of that discipline and put it into my intellect, but thankfully 3 intellect is the minimum that I'd recommend for investing into it before you start seeing diminishing returns. This is the value that you really want to make sure that you're getting to. And 6 discipline isn't particularly bad if you're playing the Pathfinder variant, because you want your grenades up a lot. If you hit people with your grenades, you're going to get your melee energy back because of the Pathfinder tree. So it's not terrible, but I've been using Spectral honestly more with this because the super is just overall more reliable, and I'll talk about that later. To go through our cooldown, 7 mobility will mean a 16-second dodge. We also have a 51-second grenade cooldown, a 5-minute super cooldown, and depending on if you're going for 10 recovery with 7 strength or 8 strength with 9 recovery, you'll have either a 48-second or 53-second melee cooldown. As far as our mods go, what I can suggest starting with our helmet is I have a strength mod with enhanced sidearm targeting and sniper targeting as well. On our gauntlets, on our Khepri Sting, we have a recovery mod and 2 times enhanced sidearm loader. On our chest piece, we have a strength mod and enhanced sidearm unflinching as well as regular sniper unflinching. And on our boots, I have a strength mod or recovery mod, depends on your taste, with a sniper scavenger and traction. And lastly, on our cloak, we have a recovery mod with outreach and powerful friends. So let's talk about the idea and structure of the loadout now. So originally, like I said, I built it as a countermeasure somewhat to combat cheaters, or attempt to do that, because from videos I've seen, some cheats give wall hacks as squares over players through walls, and obviously in addition to that, near perfect aim. And this loadout tries to equip you with your own forms of perfect information. But obviously, this loadout just has great effectiveness and has been a blast to use outside of that as well, outside of that little bit of a niche purpose I tried to make it for. It's just by itself a lot of fun outside of that if you do use it correctly. So of course you're gonna have your own form of wall hacks through using Khepri Sting, 3 seconds worth of wall hacks every about 48 to 53 seconds depending on how you have it spec'd out, by throwing your smoke grenade at your feet and sitting in that for just about a second. You can actually be mobile after doing that and you'll still maintain those wall hacks for the duration of it as well. So you're going to be able to get that perfect information on exactly where they're looking, and you can even contest them when they're not looking in your direction, which is something to look out for. And just generally you can feed information to your team as well. I chose Devil's Ruin for this loadout because it has one of the highest bursts of damage in the game when you use its charge beam. Of course, the only downside is that you do have to anticipate charging up and predicting people, but thankfully you're gonna have your own form of wall hacks, so you can do that pretty well and very quickly melt people. You can delete nearly any other primary in the game with this thing so long as you close the gap, which again you're going to use your wall hacks to do and pre-charge it while being able to see where they are exactly. The charge time for the beam is pretty long, and it actually makes the TTK with the beam, including the charge time, not really the most competitive, but if you can pre-charge this because you have the information to do so and predict enemies, or again just know where they are straight up because of Khepris, you get a really fast time to kill that outclasses pretty much all other primaries. Even the hard light or other autos that seem to be a pretty popular choice among players that utilize cheats of some sort, because so long as you can get them into close range and close the gap, you're going to have a 0.25 time to kill with all headshots on the beam. But if you don't get that, because that's rather unlikely, you still have a 0.33 second time to kill if you track them well with the laser beam of the Devil's Ruin. Of course, we're using Revoker on this build because it allows you to take any shots you need to without punishment, so you can take any snap flick you think you need to go for, and if you miss, well, you're gonna get your bullet back. And this gives you two incredibly powerful weapons for close range and long range, one that can delete up close targets and the other one that allows you to go for shots without any penalties, of course on longer range targets. I do think Way of the Pathfinder Night Stalker is more synergistic with the build for general usage with the Invis Grenade, the Invis Smoke. However, Tether feels very unreliable and janky in my experience, and personally for me, even though I love the neutral game, I prefer to have a stronger super, especially in trials. And not to mention, if you are using this to attempt to combat someone you might think is cheating, the Invis Grenade might not make a difference in this scenario because I mentioned some of the cheaters do have that wall hack ability, and I think Spectral Blaze is just far more important and lethal whether you're going against normal players or even other supers and contesting them. Of course, again, we're going to have pretty high uptime for our smoke grenades. That's essential to this build so we can gain perfect information through True Sight to either get a sniper pick, of course, if you want to go for a quick pick, or you can just use it, as I do many times, to close the gap and just delete an enemy with the charge beam of Devil's Ruin. Or perhaps if you're getting pushed by players and you got them in close range, you can throw a smoke, get that 3 seconds of True Sight, and be ready to pre-charge and delete one of them. I'd recommend for your build having a minimum of 7 strength for that 53-second melee cooldown without sacrificing other key stats, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, like recovery or mobility. But to further reduce that cooldown, I also use Outreach to gain more smoke energy when I dodge. Of course, the other mods on my gear is mainly to support the consistency and lethality of Devil's Ruin. We want it to be at its best, and that's why we're using enhanced targeting and enhanced unflinching perks to give us that maximum aim consistency, especially for the charge beam, because it does affect that. We also use 2 times enhanced sidearm loader and marksman dodge because we want near instant reloads after using our charge beam. We want to be able to use that charge beam over and over and over again and have the maximum uptime for it. So if we're going against numerous targets and they're all pushing us aggressively, we're going to be able to charge beam one, dodge to reload, charge beam another, nearly instant reload very quickly, and charge beam the last in an ideal 1v3 scenario. And with this loadout, I was trying to give Revoker a last word type companion to give it that last word snipe combo feel, and I think Devil's Ruin does that for Revoker. Of course, again, Revoker alleviates any sort of pressure of missing shots. You can just take shots, you're gonna maintain your ammo until you land a hit, which is fantastic on top of all of the other amazing qualities of the sniper. But again, Devil's Ruin gives it that last word type close range support it needs. It doesn't quite have the DPS of the last word and maybe some range performance because of that, but it does perform really well as a normal sidearm, but also has higher risk and higher reward again to delete enemies when they're aggressing you, whereas the last word might feel a little less consistent in this regard. And I think the inner accuracy of this sidearm, especially with that charge beam, is really consistent, which is really refreshing coming from the last word's inner accuracy, which is hit or miss in my experience. Another thing I really love about Devil's Ruin is that it only needs a single bullet in the mag to activate a full duration charge beam, which gives it some good potential against, again, multiple enemies, and not as much of a magazine size pressure as the last word has with its only 8 bullets. So you can go like use it as a normal sidearm, put in some damage, or even get a kill. Then another person might fly at you trying to clean you up. Nope, you can anticipate them, charge beam, and still delete them, even though you only had like 3 bullets left in the mag. I think this combo in loadout as a whole really is scary. I think it's one of the best loadouts potentially in the game. The only thing it is going to struggle against is those mid-range weapons, perhaps putting in adequate damage against them, like maybe auto rifles or hand cannons. So you do have to really be smart about closing the gap with your team and disrupting by using that laser beam, or just really being on point with your sniper picks. Nonetheless, give it a shot, give it a try. It's a lot of fun for me to use, at least, and I've been enjoying trying to master this build and doing my own little bit of effort, doing my own attempt to try and combat some of the cheaters in the game and not just give them a free win. I still want to make them sweat, I want to make them work for it, and I want to give them a run for their money. And with this loadout, I have beat cheaters. I've beaten cheaters with this loadout. It's hilarious. I think a few of them, in my experience, haven't even seen what the Devil's Ruin is. Someone thought it was a linear fusion, funny enough, because they just couldn't keep up with the TTK, even though they had perfect aim. So try it out. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the loadout and the video. If you'd like to see more content like this, you can check me out on Twitch. I stream it very frequently, twitch.tv/Drewskis. Link is in the description. I hope to see you there, but either way, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, like I said, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.